Welcome all. I am Pallavi Somanshi, presently Associate Professor at Terry School of Advanced Studies in the Department of Biotechnology. And I am a bioinformatician by training, and little bit I am trying in machine learning or the big data these days. So it will be good that I will get a feedback from you all, as you all are the learners in this area. So my topic is machine learning and diseases. So as we know that there are two separate things and we are merging together, like in bioinformatics, we are doing machine learning. In biology or the disease management. So what is machine learning? It's very well that it's a study of algorithm. We will make mathematical models in the computer system and use to progressively improve the performance on a specific task given on either it is any of the diseases or the disease management. So how it works, it builds a mathematical model from the sample data. Sample data is usually known as the training data, and then we will test it, make it a test data to make our predictions, or we can deduce the decisions, our decisions, what we want on that. So if you will say that overall it's a branch of artificial intelligence. These days AI has been used in almost every aspect of this work. So it requires, when we say that artificial intelligence, when we talk about the intelligence, we talk about we will be requiring knowledge by we will be sharing, or we will be necessitating. We will be giving it to the computers, then computers are able to interpret it and provide to us. So if we will compare the traditional programming with the machine learning, we will see that in the traditional programming, we just give input our data and the program in which our program has to run. The data has to run in a specific program. In the computer, it used to give us an output. And now in machine learning, what we are doing, we are training the system, the computer system, accordingly to our need. So we will be providing a input data, and the little bit of output in the form of the training data. Suppose there are 10 parameters in disease. So when we will be talking about the disease, then we will be saying the suppose an infectious disease. I believe that these days Corona is everywhere. Due to that, I am giving the webinar. I am not able to talk to you people face to face, giving a webinar on that. And even in the Trivandrum, otherwise I have to fly to over there, then meet you people. Now what we do, due to this Corona scare, I will be doing the webinar series. Now what happened, that we will suppose how we learn that how to stay away from this infectious disease. So if I will quote this as an example, then what we know, there are n number of viruses. Doctors used to treat this n number of viruses through several ways, right? Somewhere antiviral therapy, plasma therapy, social distancing, maintaining everything. So there are the data bit is available in the bits and pieces. So it is like a network. It is available at every places. And if you will see that in the common cold influenza, a different accession number of, or you say a version of virus is over there with coronavirus, but it's a very, very mild strain. Now this strain is so active for humans that it comes and in contact within 14-15 days is just overpower the human system. So it is trained in that manner. So what we do, we have taken all the information and bits and pieces of every virus, we accumulated that, we assimilated, the government assimilated all the data. Then they know that yes, we have to do all sort of prevention which is for the any of the viruses. Maybe that is going to help in this case of the coronavirus. So what they did, there may be machine learning they have used. Maybe they have used overall artificial intelligence, but the use of machine learning is quite prominent over there because they have mapped or they have used all the global data regarding the viruses or any of the infectious diseases. They accumulated it and they applied it. Okay. So these are the applications nowadays. It's almost in every field, in the field of finance, in the field of robotics, space technology, social site, social networking, debugging, how to extract the information, which I have discussed a few minutes back, and definitely in the field of computational biology, which is my research area. So it's if I will say that it has got the 3 component machine learning, that is the representation, then evaluation, and then optimization, how to optimize the data. So representation can be of different form. It is in the form of decision tree. It is in the form of we will be setting some, specifying some rules, some logics, because for defining any rule, any logic, you have to provide a logic why you want to do that, right? So in graphical models, these are already available, Markov nets, Bayesian models. So a hybrid model, a mix of both the things, or the separate one like neural network, SVM, and then we will be doing the model assemblies. Many times we are doing the last one, model assembles in biotechnology. So on this basis, we will make our decisions on that. This is the representation. Then we are evaluating our model. It is right, it is wrong, it has deduced any information or not. So while evaluating that, our model, first thing, might be accurate. It has got precision or the recall. If you go in the lab, what experiment you will do, your head or your supervisor always wanted to know that, okay, it is correct or not. What they want to confirm, go and do it in the 3 times. So it will be statistically significant, minimum 3 times. So that has got a repetitive model. You are able to repeat it. So it is non-prone to any error. So in this way, it has a precision to recall the things. It has got squared error, means error finding, what percentage of error it is showing. Sorry, what are the likelihood that it is a good model, it is evaluated on any of the algorithm. What is the cost benefit analysis in the form of utility, the entropy, margin, everything we have to see and evaluate on that part. Then after the representation, evaluation, now we have to optimize it, means we have to remove the noises. Sometimes what happened in biology, there are many sort of redundant data, right? So we have to remove that noise. It is called noise over here. So many times if you have run any of the tool, so it is based on either on the greedy search, gradient descent, or the linear programming. So we have to optimize in this one, and there are many new techniques which are over here. So then how to represent your knowledge representation. When we will say that representing your knowledge, as a science student, you know that it will be centered on certain facts. So you have to develop the rules with the help of logical inference. Suppose if I will say that you have to you have to apply a machine learning or AI approaches on genetic diseases. So when as soon as I say genetic diseases, so definitely you are going and will be talking about the chromosome. You are not going on the somatic side. You are going on the genetic side. So it has got some rules, some quantifiers, and you know when you will be dealing with the rules of quantifiers, then you have to ignore few things. Like I have written, learning and uncertainty, means somebody say that how much of probability is that it is going to be correct. So at that time you have to remove that as assumption and you have to go on. When you many times what happened when we see the results, then we will apply ki, okay, this might has come out of this one and this might has come of this one. So there are several algorithms which can be fitted into one problem. So expert system used logical rules or conditional probability. What happens if you will say that they on certain example, certain disease, suppose cancer. When we talk about cancer, it's a very dynamic disease. Today, the patient is maybe on stage 2 stage, and maybe when he arrive in the next week or tomorrow, he or she will be switches to the stage 3 stage. So every physiological phenomena will be different on that, and that is a very dynamic place. So what happened in that dynamism, we have to give some conditions. Either in the normal language, you will say that filters will be provided on that. Then graphical models, they treat uncertainty properly and allow learning also. So you have to, overall, you have to fit logical assertion, values of a subset of the variable, and local model. Sometimes when you make a big one model, global model, local model work differently, and overall you have to silence them while maintaining the global one. So when we compare the statistics with AI, so AI has a wide spectrum. It works on the high dimensional of data, and while statistics work on low dimension of data. And stats have lots of noise, where in AI we are able to filter that noise, or it is not very much structured. The data in statistics is not very much structured. It's a very simple model. If you have seen that if we will show anything in the form of curve, we come up with the questions like it is a sigmoidal or it is a linear. It is so simple. But here in AI, we are assembling with huge amounts of data. If you have encountered in NCBI these days, and so much of research in COVID goes on, if you will see that in the last 1 month, huge amount of COVID data is accumulating in NCBI. I think recently in the last week or so, I'm not pretty much sure, but around 13,000 sequences have come up of COVID only. So if we have to now apply to AI, then we will be requiring huge amount of data, and out of that huge amount of data, it might be complicated, and we have to provide the simplest model so that it can be fitted, it can be goes in definitely according to all the laws. It should be fitted in a simpler one and presented it too, so that the problem can be achieved, targeted. The problem is distinguished true structure from noise. Our problem is figuring out a way complicated. In this way, I will give you a very good example these days of that app which has come of Arogya Setu. In the Arogya Setu, if you will see that lots of data is coming up. When the government has launched that data, if you have assessed yourself, I don't know how many of you have assessed yourself, but if you have initially assessed yourself, you find that there are the first question asks coughing, sneezing, and fever and all. Nowadays, when they gain lot of data and they found that COVID patients are having that they are lacking the smell or taste, so they have added that feature later on. So it works on improvement also in progressive manner, that they collected that data and they found that yes, yeah, hope clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if I will say that in how to train or model a data set, then what you need, a training data set and a testing data set. training data set requires neural network NLP clustering classification, which I have mentioned over here. As you all are students, you will go and ask about this keyword. If you had any issues later on also, then also you come up to me. What happens, I will give you a very small example, that there are suppose 10 parameters out of that, right? So in 10 parameters, specific parameter, if I say that weight, height, size, if you will deduce any experiment, and you will find that 10 features are there, and in one set there might be 8 features, another set there might be 5 features, in one set there might be 1 or 2 features only from minimum, and in one set there might be 9 features, 10 features, or so on. So what we do, we try to fit in test data set all the features from 1 to 10, whatever, specific one, and take one attribute or two attribute of that. And then we will be training our data. So with any of the method, whichever method you want to apply on that. And then we will come up with different type of algol or different type of representation. And in this way it is going to work. And if the data is very sparse or very large, then it might be possible that we will apply neural network or clustering. On the basis of clustering, we will divide, and then we will build again any data. Okay, so this is the total number of I will hide this. So a training set will be larger and the test set will be smaller on that. And this is what I wanted to tell you. I think I have tell these things. So if you will see that this is a training observed one, training set, data acquisition, this is data everywhere. Practical use, we have to make this testing set unobserved, then universal set is unobserved as one. Then we have to train our data in this way. It is behind the system which is working, okay, on the computer side. And then we have to perform that. There are several factors, types of training provided. In a way, we are knowing the background knowledge, type of feedback, and the learning algorithms. So again, as I discussed before, that now what we have to do, we have to model it and then we have to optimize it. So if I will, the successful machine learning systems depend upon the algorithm. If I will use this figure, this garden figure, then I will say that seeds are our algorithm. Algorithm are like the seeds. Whatever data we are going to supply them, they are like the nutrients, and we are the gardeners, and the program which come up are like the plant. So how beautifully you will plant your seeds, then your good plants or good program will come up. So there are 4 types of algorithm. Supervised learning means you have to train your data in that way that the desired output will come out. Like that Romina called me up. She said that, okay, ma'am, you have to give a discussion or lecture on this topic. So it's like a supervised one. Now, I am going to, if suppose I will be lecturing you on the topic of, suppose any of the topic, if she has said any of the topic, maybe I will be discussing on dance or drama or anything, that will be called unsupervised learning. Means you don't have to train anything and you come out, doesn't include your desired output. It doesn't matter that in this webinar series of science student, I will be discussing arts. That will be called the unsupervised learning. And unsupervised learning where it has to be used, it has to be used somewhere when you don't know anything about the problem. Okay, you don't know anything of the problem. You don't want to train that data set. You just want an algorithm that it will come out any of the result for de novo things. It will come out any of the result. Now you will, while seeing the result, Then you applied semi-supervised or supervised on that. Okay. So in the semi-supervised, you want to train few desired elements, and then you want to test your algorithm. And then reinforcement learning is rewarding from sequence of action. Means you know that the sequences of MTB. When while looking at the sequence, you know Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It's a pathogenic strain for humans. Every little detail you know that. Now you want to treat that data in some way that it will reward, it will give you another information. So there it will be uses reinforcement learning. So supervised learning will give you prediction, classification, discrete label, and regression will be used. In unsupervised learning, clustering, probability distribution, estimation, finding association, you want to associate in some way it is similar or not, dimension reduction you have to use. Then semi-supervised and the reinforcement learning, that it comes in the decision making. So example, I have written the chess or this one. So it is pictorial representation of supervised, unsupervised, and the semi-supervised learning. So in the supervised, low or maximum for low expected value, when there will be low expected value, then your model will be good. So this E refer to that. E in for training and out is for testing one, and for the unsupervised, minimum quantization error, minimum distance, maximum likelihood estimations were used. And if you will see that these three curves have come out. First one is underfitting, overfitting. The other one is model. It happens with the model complexities. Then there will be somewhere there will be error value, and we have to look for a map in between. Somehow we have to always use human intelligence is better than artificial intelligence. So you have to use that. You don't have to depend upon the data and the probable outcome that yes, it is going to be correct. In how you have to use different algorithm if you find it somehow that it is different. So you have to change the test set sometimes. You have to change your training data on that. So these are the learning techniques for supervised learning: linear classification, parametric, non-parametric, and so on. So I guess it based on Naves Bayes. These are the typical algos or standard algorithm which are used over there. You can go and if you want, you can go and choose any one of them and you can try doing some amount of work. The most commonly used in biology are the bootstrap or aggregation over here. Sometimes when we see that large amount of image analysis work we have to do, then we will try random forest, and over there on non-parametric we go for the k nearest neighbors, or in genomics we used to work on the kernel regression many times. So what the machine learning help in healthcare? It is going to predict the diagnostics. It will identify the negative health trends with concern pre-monitory symptom. These days we are monitoring in the case of COVID, if you will say that. It is going to predict the future health conditions. Suppose after 10-20 years a new form of strain of bacterial or viral strain will come out, so we are going to map with all type of suppose what we do, that there are n number of viruses, n number of data available over there. If we will apply the AI or the ML logics over there, and we can say that after 20 or 30 years I will give you any of the strain and I will say that you start doing mutations. We know the logics of mutation. that yes, if there is synonymous mutation, they are going to help, or they are going to somehow change our change the sequences. So we will be pinpointing that point mutations, and then we will be predicting that yes, these amino acid is going to change in 30 years, 40 years, and it might be possible a new pathogenic or non-pathogenic. Maybe it happens that with the times this COVID will be goes to non-pathogenic one, or it might be possible that any other pathogenic strain will come out. So we are able to predict that with large amount of data. And then obviously if we are going to predict that, and there is an emergency condition, then we are able to raise the alarm on that. We will be it will help in disease prediction and health monitoring. So computer-based self-diagnosis, self-directed treatment many times. And in this condition, we are saying that nowadays, even hospitals, they say that when you are very much in the extremely emergency condition, then you used to come over there. Otherwise, you just monitor your health and just let us know that what is, suppose somebody is diabetic or somebody is having heart problem, they just say that monitor it and consult it in any of the social media platform, and consult it with the doctors. So, and it is going to definitely in this way going to help in the precision medicine. So physiological signal analysis algorithm on machine learning subject. Okay. So what happened that if you will say sometimes what happened that while flying somebody has some type of abnormalities. There are might be possible that they are a first timer, or they have some psychological problem as soon as they were in the aircraft. So their health monitoring or disease prediction can be done sitting at the air base. They can see that some crew members are trained in a way that they know that somebody is having some sort of problem, or it is a first timer, or somebody has psychological problem. They are going to watch that and extract that data, and they just train their crew member that you can provide this medicine, so they will be normalized over there. Or what happened if you will say that it sometimes it depend upon the gender issues also. If suppose some female is it's a lactating mother, or it is she is a pregnant mother, pregnancy is there. So what happened? Crew treated them differently. They just said that you don't want to sit in the front side or on the lower side. They just make her comfortable so that they don't have any problem while flying. So these approaches is going to train them, and train the not the individual, train them at large scale. Whenever you talk about ML or AI, it should be on the very large scale. So there are epileptic disorders also. So in flight interventions can be dealt with this with the help of ML for this crew staff. So EEG, if you have you know that electroencephalogram, it is there. So this type of data come out, and then what happened that in the epileptic seizures, there are pre-condition, at the onset condition, and the post conditions. So if you will see that it seems almost same for that. So they are able to predict that what sort of treatment to be given over there. So it is on the very large data. As soon as the data keeps on coming, it is going to train the systems. When I say that train the system, means it should be more accurate. It doesn't do much delay, or in this way false high sensitivity and specificity there.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you now.
Okay. So in the machine learning in infectious diseases, One is on the surveillance, then other one is on the treatment. When we will see the disease surveillance, then again I will always use the COVID example. If China has done it with the, specifically I will say, because very first case has erupted over there, if they had their surveillance system were really very good, so they might have informed other travelers or passengers that is stay over there, do not move, so it hasn't spread around the globe. So in this way, law enforcement people will also use that. Suppose there are some hot spots of violent crime over there. When we will say that violent crime, we know that maybe some place are proactive. Why we say that don't go in the very much border areas, because from one place to another, criminals will shoot up. The where I live in Delhi, it's in the South Delhi, so it's a nearby border is of Haryana. So within 5 minutes, one can move in the Haryana, and it's the criminal. It might be it's in criminal cases in Delhi, but not in Haryana. So law enforcement people cannot work over there unless and until they have a MOU or they have a MOU with them in any of the department. So that is the prone hotspot, and then vigilance will be available over here when they know that yes, these areas are very prone or keen for that. And definitely for patient care too, patient care surveillance can be taken up very easily. Again, I will take this example because in COVID also we have to follow some distancing norms. Then we will say that it can be collected through surveillance system by the cameras, and when we can say that yes, after 4 or 5 the drug works for 6 hours, but after 4 or 5 hours patient will be needing something, so we know that, we assess that in this way. So there are widest spectrum for that, for optimization, for identification of the patient subgroups for personalized or precision medicine. Then we will be discovering new medical knowledge. We will be improving the accuracy of the diagnosis, prognosis, and the risk prediction too. We can reduce the medication errors and the adverse events, so on. And then in this way we will model and prevent the spread of the hospital acquired infection. We can improve the quality of care and population health outcomes, and we can automate the detection of relevant findings in specifically in pathology and radiology. So in this way it is going to optimize the hospital process, such as resource allocation and patient flow. It is going to be relevant in pathology and radiology, because it is going to give the very accurate result. What we do, the first thing, whenever any patient visited to hospital, they go and take this test, give me this USG, give me this graph, because they want to be accurate and pretty much sure that yes, whatever diagnosis the doctor wanted, that it should be crystal clear, so that the patient will be treated accordingly. So application of machine learning is in disease identification, personalized medicine, drug discovery, or manufacturing these days. Clinical trial, this I have discussed. It is one of the case study I have find. I thought that it will be useful for the students, that suppose in humans, it's an enzyme. SDR is a sort of enzyme. So it's a short enzyme, and 202 SDR forms are present in humans. And when somebody worked and they found that 82 SDR genes are over there, and they are used in steroid hormones, prostaglandin, retinoid metabolism, and pretty much n number of pathways where it is very crucial. So growing number of SNPs have been assigned to SDR genes, and we saw that SDR is present in all forms of life almost. And if I remember correctly, around more than 1500 or so SDRs are present, and in out of which around 200 SDRs are present in humans. When we see 77 human SDR are listed in well annotated database, Swisspot, OMIM, etc., and thought that prostate cancer is the most common cancer in Western countries as compared to the tropical one, and these hormones play an important role, being it cancerous or benign. Then with the use of SVM, they have trained this data set. They have taken 60 human SDR as training set and 11 as non-SDR were served as positive data set for testing, and remaining non-SDR as a negative data set. And they have done this work over here. And they found that these are the frequency of the functional group with these chains: phenyl carboxyimidazole, primary amines, and so on. And then they checked the frequency of physiochemical group. And on this basis, they found that these are the features which I was discussing initial also, that frequency of tongue functional group, frequency of hydrophobic phylix, so on, overall composition of helix, and so on, 10, 7, 3, and in overall, if you will say that 719 attributes were seen. And on that basis, secondary structural element, physiochemical properties, amino acid compositions were checked, and they have collected in this way. If I will give you specifically, they just collected sequences of human and non-human SDR. They reduced the redundancy by 40%. They built it with 719. They used feature selection using a Vega tool, and then they selected the best features. Then again they perform using human and non-human SDR, and after feature selections, this result, 86% with subset of 3 features selected by information gave, tenfold result has come out. And they have said that with the use of SVM, support vector machine classification of distantly related enzymes will yield a good combination of physicochemical property to represent an enzyme, and these features are used to describe each sequence. They have not left out any of the attributes in this one. And if you will see that this is the work which recently my group has done that. So we used network-based approaches for disease indication and potential therapeutics these days in our laboratory. So what we just use topological analysis, random walk algorithm, degree betweenness. And what we did, if you will see that maybe if you have not studied, but you have heard curcumin. It's a alkaloid in haldi. If you will know that it's a normal masala used on daily to daily basis in any of the curry here in India. So we see that lot have been talked about this curcumin. What we did, that we just collected all sort of data using n number of keywords. Suppose curcumin in cancer, curcumin in neurodegenerative disorder, haldi in diabetes. So we tried everything, and we deduced around 25 to 2900 publications out of this. And we checked almost all the publicly available databases, and even if we needed, so we extracted the data from there, and then we started deducing the overall network by making these small networks. And this is a pictorial representation, and if you will see that this network we have made, where the use of curcumin in the human cells have been discussed. Then what happened out of this, if you will see these pathways and their gene count have come out. Then we applied this ML techniques. Then we found if there is a power law, a perfect, almost perfect power law has come up, and there are these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attributes which are going out. Otherwise, they are coming up on this trajectory. And now we will see that these bottlenecks, out of these pathways, these are the observed gene count. Then we made this features, and we found that the 10 bottleneck, we said that bottleneck genes which were missing over there. So this orange genes over here, this missing over there, and they are key to curcumin modulated key pathways, which has come up like this. Again we analyzed the data, and we found that this map K1 curcumin can inhibit or control this N number 1, but most prominently this one. And again, when we thought, then if you will are able to see that curcumin can help in treating tuberculosis or this N number of diseases over there. So this we have done in one of the studies. In another study, what we did, that there is a disease called inflammatory bowel disease. It was some researchers have established a link between arthritis, reactive arthritis, and IBD. So what we will apply again the network studies, and we found that in IBD, out of 5, and these, if you will able to see that there are 5 microorganisms, any one is present in that. In the patients, we just screened all the literature like we did in this one, and we found that out of 5, one microorganism is present in this disease. So we just correlated with that, and we found that these 5 are important one. Now we observe that which gene is present in 5. Then we did all sort of network analysis, and 412 essential proteins were found, and there is a one interaction of KYNU, Kainu gene is there, which is common in all the 5, and which is available, which is present in all the IBD or reactive arthritis patients. Now somehow we tested in the lab, and we found that yes, a link has been established over there. So it is also recently published, and these are the research outcome till now, and many are in the pipeline that we have predicted over there. And I just want to say thank you out of this, and I look forward for the questions if there are any.
Is it possible for machine learning to identify unidentified unknown diseases?
Yeah, definitely. But you have to apply the logic. But it is possible. Even not in human, if it has come from any of the animal or plant. So based on the data, it is possible. We wanted to do some work, but but it is possible.
Okay, ma'am. What are the limitations of using AI or machine learning in biological field? In the biology field.
In biology, limitation is that I will say that this machine learning, because I am also a biology student, so I can correlate with that we somehow we don't know about the languages or the computer so well. While the computer scientists don't know about the biology, what they know about the biology is 20 amino acid and 4 digits of DNA, RNA. So sometimes what I feel that it's, although it's an amalgamation, that 2 or 3 people can work very nicely, and if a medical scientist will come, so they have their own say. But on the algorithm or the mathematical size na, if somebody knows the languages also, so it's a win-win situation. Otherwise, if somebody want to work, I don't think it's a limitation. We have to improve into that. Anybody can learn.
Okay, ma'am. How using machine learning techniques, how can we shortlist the ideal candidates for treatment plans for diseases like HIV?
Plans.
Treatment plans for
Acha,
candidates.
plans. Okay, so in plans, likewise, what I did for curcumin or this one, so you have to filter the data and you have to be very target oriented, target based work. You have to do that you know that suppose for if it is a virus HIV, then it is a retrovirus where it is going to work, where it target based therapy. You have to enjoy that. Definitely you are going to do that, but caution is that on if suppose it is on the medical side, you are working on the plant side, you have to choose the data accordingly. Data, there are so much of data, you have to remove the redundancy and you have to very much specific that in which aspect you are going to do that. So you can do that.
Okay, ma'am. What are your views on the future implications of AI in cancer biology?
Cancer biology, though we are working. So because I told in my discussion too that cancer is a very dynamic and a progressive disease, right? So and definitely AI or ML is going to treat us, but I will say that they are going to treat us very nicely. But it's so progressive na ki one in this week suppose some patient is in the first stage, it might be possible in the next week some patient is on the third stage. So overall assumption, doctors use their wisdom to treat that, but certainly it is going to helpful in making biomarkers or a specific treatment, early diagnosis. That definitely AI or ML is going to do wonders on that early diagnosis.
Okay, ma'am. How is machine learning going to change the scenario of clinical trial system management?
Clinical trial, yes. Clinical trial, in this way, it will be effective. Suppose, as you see, there are never one person is doing that. N number of people are doing that, but it is governed by a regulatory authority. So now if a regulatory authority will say that, okay, these 5 people are going to work on that, they have to share the data on a dynamic basis. Suppose if I am working on 10 patients, so I have to float my outcome on that one portal, one place over there. No doubt, maybe some IP issues will come over there, but it is the government policy that have to eradicate that. In this way, ML or AI is going to help me out, because these other 4 people are going to know that, okay, this probability, this will come out. Means one is going to train or test that data.
Okay, ma'am. How can machine learning be used to update the new details and exception condition cases into knowledge databases?
I think the exceptional condition these days is of COVID, and I discussed that suppose a new virus or new condition is coming out. So because we are dependent on one thing, that is data. So if there is no data, we are helpless. If there are numerous data, so we are able to deduce something.
Okay, ma'am. How can we troubleshoot errors in machine learning when something goes wrong in the diagnosis?
Diagnosis. ML don't come immediately for diagnosis thing. ML works on the, I think I said na, it is dependent upon the data. So eventually data is there, no problem. Why I said that, if you will specifically ask that 100% proof is not there, 98, 99%, 1 or 2% error rate will be there. Accuracy will be 90% and above, it's accurate. But data dependent things has, if data is wrong, what can I do? Suppose somebody has posted wrong data, suppose mischievously, and in 100 numbers, 10 data is deformed or cooked data. So somebody is using that. So in 90 data is correct, 10 data is mischievously some person has put it over there. So we will be requiring that sophisticated sites or sophisticated data sophisticated. One way in the machine learning, one time I said that data redundancy, data cleaning. So that is going to help us in this question.
Okay, ma'am. Could you highlight some impactful insights of machine learning in the context of drug discovery?
Drug discovery, if you will see that what I have done, I am trying to discover that drug for IBD, because specifically I have identified that kinogene. Now I will be looking for any of the collaborator. I find that in the hospital that who has provided me this one. So we have moved to another stage that we found that yes, kinogene is working. Then again we will be screening against that particular gene. In this way we move forward, and this is what drug discovery happens.
Okay, ma'am. PCR and RDT are still the primary choice for checking the presence of COVID-19 virus in the body. Will machine learning models ever get to the level of these clinical tests?
Not at all. They can assume, they can give you the theory, but you have to wet your hands when you have to do that.
Okay, ma'am. Is it necessary or sure to have knowledge on programming languages such as Python to know machine learning?
It's good, but it is not necessary, because you discover new things, and you will find that okay, another language is going to support. But definitely any language, Python is going to support you.
Okay, ma'am. Can machine learning take up the situation when situation is pretty serious without the help of human knowledge, even though everything is programmed before?
Yeah, definitely. They will deduce something.
Okay, ma'am. How can machine learning improve genome sequencing technologies?
In this way, I will say that if you suppose I will give you a challenge that okay, and there are 100 genes, and you have to do the pairwise sequence one by one. Suppose 10 100 base pair genes, and there are 100 genes. So bit by bit you have to. It is very tedious for any one of us to do that single-handedly, right? So computationally also, you will be requiring very heavy system. Now we know that suppose in the case of any of the biological database, if I will mention NCBI, so data will be there. Now I will be training my system, right? I will be training my system by writing a algorithm for that okay, that system, that algorithm will be fetching the data from NCBI, and they will be correcting over this, doing bit by bit. And now if any new sequence will come, so it will be going in this way. So what happened, that it facilitates, and also it minimizes our time too. So ML is going to intervene in that too.
Okay, ma'am. How effective has machine learning been in predicting diagnostic markers for Alzheimer's disease or any other neurodegenerative diseases?
Neurodegenerative, yes, machine learning is really very helpful if somebody is interested. I think last month, there is a very good review has come up in Nature reviews about ML used in neurodegenerative disorders. So one can go and see that. They just Google it and they will find it. So ML is going, because what they do the image analysis in any of the neurodegenerative disorders. They just take the EEG grams. In that they will see that how the brain is shrinking. They have a specific shape. So ML or AI is going to come up in a big way. They are going to build it. If somebody is interested, they can read that article. It's a good one.
Okay, ma'am. How much is machine learning analysis accurate in the context of prediction of any pathogen inside our body?
Pathogen inside our body?
Yes, ma'am.
That's a very lovely question, but I have to think about that. I cannot comment like this, but definitely I am going to comment that, but I have to read that. Sorry, I don't want to answer this question vaguely.
Okay, ma'am. Will machine learning take over automation of medical field and cause the loss of many jobs?
People are making this assumption, but I don't think so. It is going, because human health is so challenging that that anyone will not go like that. But it is definitely going to help us. But loss of job, it's not possible, because one way we are training ourselves to do that job. Who will look after that machine learning things? It's a sci-fi imagination things. It's nothing like that.
Okay, ma'am. Our last question for the day. Are there any ethical issues related to using AI and machine learning in the medical field, the biology field?
Not right now in my knowledge, because I said you that whatever in the public domain, we are using that. When something is in the public domain, so in this way consent have been taken already. Suppose and for the specific one, I have to collaborate and they have to take the consent. If I suppose I am collaborating with any of the hospitals or patients, so they have to, no, they will be clearing that issues before. Nothing like that.